Hillsdale's 167-year tradition of independence and refusal of all taxpayer support, while at the same time being nationally ranked among the best colleges in the country, proving what entrepreneurs do all the time, and that is that you can truly make a profit and be successful and compete and be excellent without government funds. Many here today are longtime friends and benefactors of Hillsdale College. A few have visited the campus in Michigan and have attended Hillsdale's programs. A few are graduates, and I heard from at least 2 parents tonight who have children going to Hillsdale College. A handful have even visited the college's new campus located in Washington, D.C., just minutes from Capitol Hill. So how and why does Hillsdale, located in the frozen tundra countryside of southern Michigan, merit your time and support? They are here because simply they are united in their love of our country and the foundations of which it was formed. We are here in the tradition of freedom, of assembly to defend and advance our God-given dignity as individuals and independence of citizens. James Madison wrote, "The happy union of the states is a wonder, their constitution a miracle, their example the hope of liberty throughout the world." Hillsdale is a standard bearer for these very ideals, principles, and beliefs which are constitutionally set forth for every citizen. We will learn more about these principles and our nation's history when our speaker, Dr. Folsom, addresses us. And that leads us to Burt Folsom. Burt Folsom comes to us from Michigan, where he is a professor of the great Hillsdale College. He's a very prolific writer, has published 6 books. His most recent book is the subject of his message tonight, New Deal or Raw Deal, How FDR's Economic Legacy Has Damaged America. Now, to show you how hard-hitting Dr. Folsom is, yesterday on his blog, this is not part of his introduction, but I've happened to read it, Dr. Folsom weighed in on matters of the Middle East as it relates to our president offering advice to Egypt by saying, role model countries balance their budgets, trust in freedom to keep unemployment low, and avoid borrowing trillions of dollars from a Chinese dictatorship. If presidents can't do that, why should they lecture other leaders on how to run their countries? Burt Folsom is a native of Lincoln, Nebraska. He studied at Center College before receiving his BA at Indiana University. He holds a master's degree from the University of Nebraska and a PhD from the University of Pittsburgh. He has taught at Murray State University, Northwood University, and currently holds the Charles Kline Chair in History and Management at Hillsdale College in Hillsdale, Michigan. Dr. Folsom also worked for several years at the Mackinac Center for Public Policy and the Center for American Ideas. He has published 6 books, including Myth of the Robber Barons, now in its 5th edition, in which he explains the role of market entrepreneurs and political entrepreneurs. Dr. Folsom also serves as a senior historian at the Foundation for Economic Education and writes a quarterly column for their publication, The Free Man. His articles have appeared in the Wall Street Journal, Business History Review, Investors Business Daily, the Washington Times, and countless other publications. He has made numerous television appearances on The Glenn Beck Show, Fox and Friends, and C-SPAN. On talk radio, he's a frequent guest of Rusty Humphreys, Michael Medved, and many others. He and his wife Anita write for their blog at burtfolsom.com, and they are co-authoring FDR Goes to War, which will be coming out later this year. The title of Dr. Folsom's talk tonight is FDR and Obama, Big Spenders of Other People's Money. Let us give a warm Silicon Valley welcome to Burt Folsom.
Thanks to Richard and Jack and all the Conservative Club for inviting me, and to many friends of Hillsdale College, including one of my former students who is here. And I tell you, being conservatives, one thing you know for sure, especially out here in California, is that life is not fair. How many of you figured that out? One of the biggest inequities has been perpetrated today and is in the process of being perpetrated. Because here I am teaching at Hillsdale College, which is in the midst of a blizzard. I am out and I come here to San Jose, where it's 70 degrees out. My wife Anita and I had a chance this afternoon to travel and see the giant redwoods and the beautiful California coastline all the way down to Big Sur. And we were sitting there saying, aren't we glad that we're here and not Hillsdale? To visit, to teach, I'll stay at Hillsdale. But there's something that just isn't fair about being able to slip out of that blizzard, and then in return, you give me this coastline, this beautiful city, and I give you a lecture on two of the worst presidents in U.S. history. It's not fair. And I was thinking of the inequity of it all when I was being introduced. I thought, I can't do it. I can't go through it. Now, I'm going to go through it part way because you came here to suffer. If you came here to hear about FDR and Obama and the comparison, you're going to get that. But I feel the need to throw in two good presidents to balance it a little bit, to start things off. In return for the great hospitality that you have shown Anita and me today, and the two good presidents I'd like to give you are two that you don't hear about very often, and that is Calvin Coolidge and his predecessor, Warren G. Harding. And let me just explain this a minute. It's going to fit what we're talking about tonight. Because part of the issue is, how do you achieve prosperity? How do you reduce unemployment? How do you create a growing economy? Harding and Coolidge. Coolidge was Harding's vice president, and then of course became president when Harding died. So the two of them were working together during the 1920s, in the decade before Franklin Roosevelt. And they confronted 12% unemployment when Harding and Coolidge came into office because World War I had ended and the soldiers, 4 million, had come home. And we had, as a result of that, we had 12% unemployment. Now, we look at this. In California has high unemployment. Michigan has the highest unemployment in the nation. We also have huge taxes. As I understand, more are coming your way, too. And what happened was 12% unemployment after World War I. And Harding comes in, and the question is, what are you guys going to do about it? And they had many people ready to make offers and give them good advice. One piece of advice was, a strong one, supported by many people. What you need in the face of this 12% unemployment after the war is to have a stimulus package. That was the advice. And listen to the logic. It's impeccable logic. I mean, you think connecting the dots here. Look, we've got 4 million unemployed soldiers. And it's 1920, 21. The automobile has just become a major means of transportation. Now, why don't we get more roads built so that these automobiles will have places to go that are better than what they had in 1920. So let's have infrastructure, roads, and all of this, and put people to work. Building the roads, then we won't have 12% unemployed because those people will be building the roads. And then they will spend money in the economy, and we will prosper as a nation. Coolidge was not a man of many words. His response to this was kind of interesting. No. Naturally, a reporter went, well, why not? Why not? No. He said, for two reasons. You know, he says, are you just saying no? He said, simple reasons. Number one, if you do from the private sector and transferring it to the public sector. Now, Coolidge was making the point, if you take money from the public sector, from private sector, and put it into the public sector, you're not creating jobs. All you're doing is transferring funds from what people want to spend it on to what some government planner wants to spend it on. You are not going to reduce the 12% unemployment. You simply let people have less control over their money. And they said, well, okay, that's one reason. And he said, the second one is, it's unconstitutional. He referred them to Article 1, Section 8, where it has no government authority to build roads. That was supposed to be private, just like education. All is supposed to be a private function, not one that the federal government is supposed to be involved with. Now, it's kind of interesting because I was glad to see that you responded so well. We have copies of the Constitution back there that we give out that you're welcome to have. If you don't believe Mr. Coolidge, you're welcome to check and see Article 1, Section 8. We take this so seriously at Hillsdale College, by the way, that we even have a course on the Constitution that every student has to take. Richard was referring to the Kirby Center. We have the Kirby Center in Washington, D.C., which is set up to teach constitutional principles to members of Congress and their assistants who come and hear lectures on that because we are trying to revitalize a concern for the Constitution in the United States. What we had was that those two arguments, Coolidge said, and Harding too, should prevail. And it was kind of interesting because the counter response was this. Okay, you're just a guy who says no then, is that right? The politics of no. No, we have a two-point program. Number one, cut federal spending. And number two, cut the tax rates to encourage entrepreneurs to invest. We did those two things in the 1920s. We cut federal spending so dramatically, year after year during the 1920s, that we had budget surpluses every year during the 1920s. That sounded so good, I want to say it again. We had budget surpluses every year during the 1920s, and we knocked a third of the national debt off. It just disappeared. It's like that marquee that you see sometimes that has the whirling money that we owe. The national debt is increasing steadily. It's going the other way during the 1920s. As a result of cutting federal spending, and they cut the income tax to the point that the maximum rate that anybody had to pay was 25%. As a result of the tax rate cut and the reduction of federal spending with budget surpluses every year, unemployment, which was 12% in 1921 when Harding and Coolidge came into office, 2 years later, 2%. We went from 12% unemployment to 2% unemployment in 2 years. Calvin Coolidge had for his whole presidency an average of 3.3% unemployment, the lowest rate of any president in the 20th century. His formula, budget surpluses every year, and cut tax rates. We had so much growth in the 1920s. We turned entrepreneurs loose. Now, there was no way that we could have known these results were going to happen, except by